I already know that I'm gonna get so many people in my comments calling me broke just for making this video, but first of all, LOL, look at the camera quality. You see the quality, you see the microphone, like, come on. And honestly, that could be lesson number one. Don't listen to people who call you broke for being financially responsible. All right, now that that's out of the way, this is the money-saving guide for fragrance purchases. These are all the methods that I actually use. We're gonna go over discounters, decanters, dupes, and a few other things, so buckle up, let's get into it. All right, now before I start going into each individual method, I do just want to make one thing clear. Just because you are saving money compared to retail price in a lot of these methods, it doesn't mean that you're saving money. You are still spending money. Fragrance addiction, shopping addiction, consumerism, these are all real things. And sometimes I feel like getting things at discounted prices can be a chase of its own that kind of fuels this whole thing. And the whole point of this video is rooted in financial responsibility. So I just want to encourage you to spend your money responsibly. The first method is sampling in store. This is the simplest, easiest, and cheapest way to explore new fragrance releases is by simply going to a Macy's, a Dillard's, a Neiman Marcus, going up to the counter and using the tester fragrances and sampling them yourself. Now I would say the con to doing this is not only the annoying sales reps that can come up to you and just start throwing random new scents in your face and all, and start bothering you. But also I feel like when you're sampling in store where there's just a ton of fragrances being sprayed everywhere, it can kind of overwhelm your nose and you can get like an inaccurate read on a lot of things. There's just a lot of olfactory noise almost that's going on when just bottles are being sprayed everywhere. And so there's just been times where I've sampled things in store, not liked them, and then sampled them in a decant and thought they were great. There's been times where I've sampled things in store, thought they were amazing, brought them home, and wasn't so pleased with them. And also the sales reps can also be pushy and manipulative and use kind of not so friendly sales tactics to try to get you to buy something. I usually just tell the sales reps that I'm just waiting on my girlfriend. I'm not going to buy anything. I'm just sampling things, and they usually leave me alone. But also, to be fair, sometimes they'll put you onto something good. So, it's kind of a dice roll. But I think this had to be the first method because it's completely free to do and it costs you nothing. I mean, you could walk into a store, literally completely douse yourself, full body sprays, 30 sprays of whatever fragrance you're interested in sampling and walk out the store. That's completely legal. The next method that I want to talk about are fragrance online discounters. There are many wholesale fragrance discounters that offer designer and niche fragrances at heavily discounted wholesale prices online. There are tons of legitimate sites that do this. There's nothing illegal or sketchy about them. It's similar to the way that like when you go to Marshall's or TJ Maxx and you're able to get name brand products at heavily discounted prices, it's the same idea. It's wholesale. And you can usually find a vast majority of fragrances if they've been out long enough on some of these sites. So if you're interested in a fragrance and it's not a brand new release, then you can probably go online and get it 40, maybe 50% of MSRP. And discounters make it to where, simply put, you should never buy retail if you don't have to. Now, a little disclaimer, not all fragrances are available on discounters, so brands like Chanel and Louis Vuitton do things in their power to make sure their fragrances do not end up at discounters. They don't offer their fragrances wholesale. They do it to kind of protect their brand and, whatever. It's like bougie, exclusive brand activity. But almost all other brands you can usually find at a discounted price. And also, I just want to say, don't just trust every single fragrance discounter website that you can find on the internet. Not all of them are trustworthy. I have gotten some scam deals and I've been sent fake bottles with fake juice, like literal fraudulent products before. And those are fragrances that I bought on Amazon. So be careful and make sure you do your due diligence when you're buying from some of these sites online. The fragrance discounters that I purchase from all the time with no problems are Joma Shop, Aura Fragrance, Venba Fragrance, Fragrance Lord, Fragrance Nevea, and Arvella Fragrance. But there are plenty more, and I encourage you, if you have one that you like, to leave it in the comments below. The next thing I want to talk about are decants. Decants are small little sample bottles that you can buy, very similar to like travel sprays, and these are ways that you can explore fragrances with like a no strings attached. So if you're interested in trying out a fragrance and seeing if you like it, you can buy 1 milliliter, 2 milliliter, 5 milliliter, or 10 milliliter bottles. Try them out, give them a few wears, and then determine if you want to buy the full-size bottle. If you're just looking to try a fragrance and just see if it's something that you might like, honestly, I think a 2 ml sample is perfect. It's enough to get like 25 or 30 sprays, so you definitely get a few wears to be able to, to be able to gauge the fragrance and see what it is. I'd only really recommend purchasing a 5 ml or 10 ml travel size if you're going to be doing exactly that, traveling, or if you want something to stick in your pocket when you go outside the house or something like that. If you want to bring your fragrance with you on the go, that's when I would say go with the 5 or the 10 ml bottles. Now, a little pro tip, you can get free small samples when you go and you sample in store. Sometimes they will, they'll throw them in your bag with your purchase as a little thank you, as like a little goodie. But also if you go up to some of those sales reps, sometimes if they're feeling generous, they'll just give them to you. This is very much like a beggars choosers type situation. You're not guaranteed to get a sample of the exact fragrance you want if you walk up to like the sales counter at Macy's. They don't have to give it to you. And also, never, ever, ever tell the sales reps about discounters. Don't give them any hint of any information that might lead them to believe that you are not going to purchase the fragrance from them. If they think you're going to leave and buy the fragrance online, they're probably not going to help you. So speaking of decants and travel sprays, I want to talk about the place where I get all of my personal travel sprays and decants, and that is Luxe Gentlemen's Society. This is a site run by my guy Jerry. He is a great dude, and they have great prices on there, and you can get even better prices if you use code FRAGYAP10. You can get 10% off your order at Luxe Gentlemen's Society. There's a great selection, designers, niche, had to plug it. Go check out Luxe. Next, I want to talk about tester fragrances. Now, tester fragrances are exactly what they sound like. When you go to Macy's, Dillard's, Neiman Marcus, any of those places, and you see all the bottles out on the counter, the ones that you test and you spray into the strip, those are tester bottles, and they're a little bit different than the retail bottles. The juice is completely the same, so as far as the actual liquid, the fragrance, the perfume itself, it's no different from bottle to bottle, but you will notice some of these bottles are marked as testers. Sometimes the presentation will be removed. Sometimes these bottles won't have a cap. Sometimes they have that sticker on them that says not for resale, for tester use only, things like that. But like I said, the juice in the bottle is exactly the same. I have a tester bottle of Versace Dylan Blue. I used to have a retail bottle of Versace Dylan Blue. It's the same exact juice. It smells exactly the same. Now, you usually can't buy the testers in stores, but if you go on some of the online discounters that we were talking about earlier, that's usually where you can find the tester bottles at an even further discounted price. Sometimes the bottle will look exactly the same, but just in a more generic box, and sometimes the bottles will come without a cap. And, me personally, that's really where I draw the line. Like, I'm down for the discount, and I am a deal chaser, through and through, but I am not buying a luxury product if it does not come with a cap. This fragrance is the best example. I almost picked this fragrance up. This is Creed Green Irish Tweed. I could get a tester bottle of this for, I think, $199, but if you want to get an actual bottle that I want to say you have to pay like $40 or $50 more dollars, even when you're buying from discounters, just to get the real bottle that comes with the cap. So, that's really a personal decision, but for me, that's where I draw the line. If the bottle doesn't come with the cap, I usually will go and get the retail bottle. The retail bottle from discounters. But you can get some crazy deals. I've seen fragrances that run $475 retail, marked down to like $250 on a discounter site, and then even down further into the like $180 range for a tester bottle. All right, the next thing that I want to talk about, and I've done a full-length video on this, that is buying, selling, and trading fragrances in online fragrance groups. I've done an entire full-length video on how to trade your fragrances online. I encourage you to go check that out for a more comprehensive breakdown on kind of the do's and don'ts when it comes to trading your fragrances in some of these different groups. But I did think it was relevant for this video, so, I'll touch on it. Sometimes the fragrance you want is sold out or unavailable on discounters, but you still don't want to pay retail price. Where can you go to find a good price for the fragrance that you want? It's online groups. I've bought, sold, and traded fragrances at least 25, 30 times, if not more. In my opinion, Facebook and Reddit are the best place to find groups, but like I said, you can go watch that full-length video for a more in-depth way to find some of these groups. But like I said, I've used these groups a lot, and sometimes I have found some absolute steals. For example, I snagged this 75 ml bottle of Parfums de Marly $100. The Green Irish Tweed I was just telling you about, I got it in a trade. I traded a Stronger With You sandalwood fragrance, which I think was worth like $130, in exchange for a nearly full Green Irish Tweed with cap. fleeced them. And I also want to talk about trading your fragrances. If you have bottles that are sitting on your shelf and just collecting dust, you can offer them up for trade, and instead of having to buy things with cash, you can just trade the fragrances that you have that you aren't using to get a new bottle. Again, you should probably go watch the full-length video about trading fragrances. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, I would highly recommend it. I do want to give a quick disclaimer, like there is inherent risk to buying, selling, and trading on some of these groups. Even people who appear trustworthy can scam you. They can send you a fake bottle. They can take the real juice out of a real bottle and put fake juice inside of it. They could have left their fragrance in the glove box of their car that sat out in the baking sun for the entire summer. You have no way to confirm, how this product has been handled while it was in the hands of that person. And if they're trading a lot, that bottle could have had 2 or 3 owners before it's made its way to you. Also, it's possible. I've personally had no issues with anything like that, and honestly, I've met some of the best people ever in the fragrance community in some of these groups. So whether you're gonna buy, sell, trade or not, I still highly recommend you join one. All right, next I want to talk about dupes, and I really feel like this could be a video of its own. Now, dupes, I'm not talking about fraudulent products, okay? I'm not talking about someone made this fake product in order to appear like a different brand. I'm talking about a fragrance brand that does an inspired by. So they make their own product, and it's inspired by a popular designer or niche fragrance. These fragrances are usually much more cost effective, and sometimes the brands will just tell you outright, hey, this is inspired by this. But other times you kind of have to figure it out either through looking at the notes or going online, doing some due diligence, some research, and figuring out what people think that certain things smell like. And my experience with dupes, honestly, is very hit or miss. There are a ton of releases, in my opinion, that have been really, really disappointing. There are some diamonds in the rough, no doubt about it. There definitely are some masterpiece dupes out there that you can get in the $30 price range that, in my opinion, they make buying the original, it makes no sense to buy the original. But more often than not, I find myself cognizant of the drop in quality when it comes to the quality of ingredients. Maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't, but my recommendation would be, if you love a fragrance, if you have a fragrance that's one of your favorite of all time, you probably should just save up and buy the real thing as opposed to getting the dupe. The little differences, the little nuances, the drop in ingredient quality, those are things that are going to piss you off more so than satisfy, if that makes sense. Where I think dupes come in super clutch if I have fragrances, oh, I like that, I'm interested in it. Is it my favorite fragrance I've ever smelled? No. Would I buy it if it was a cheaper price? Yes. In a circumstance like that, that is when I go the dupe route. I have a dupe of YSL Tuxedo, okay? YSL Tuxedo is not a fragrance that I ever would have bought a full-size bottle of the real thing, just simply due to price and just because I'm not gonna wear it enough to really justify shelling out that money to buy the full-size bottle of that fragrance. It makes no sense for me to have it in my collection. But when I was able to get a really high quality dupe of it for $45, I was like, okay, well now this makes more sense. Now I can add this to the collection. I don't feel like I got ripped off. I feel like I got what I paid for, and now I've diversified my collection at something that wasn't such an intense cost to me. But if I was to go and get a dupe of something like Creed Green Irish Tweed instead of the real thing, which, this is a fragrance I love. This is on my top list. If I was to go and get the dupe in lieu of that fragrance, I would never wear it because I would hate it, because it just doesn't do for me what that fragrance does. Does it smell like it? Is it close? Sure. But it's not that fragrance, and I love that fragrance. So, for me, you kind of have to really pick and choose. One inspired by a brand that I wholeheartedly endorse is Citadel Perfumes. I visited their store in Chicago, Illinois. I did a whole entire full-length video on visiting Citadel. I own, I think at this point, 6 or 7 of their fragrances. They are high quality. They last a long time. They project like crazy. And, it's honestly just a brand that I have just discovered and fell in love with. 2 other brands that I've heard nothing but great things about, but I don't personally have any in my collection, are Montaigne and Alexandria fragrances. And the last thing that I want to talk about before we wrap this video up is discipline. This might be the most important section of the entire video. And I think what I'm about to say in this section applies to every other section, every other topic that I've discussed so far. By discipline, I think what I really mean is patience. Sometimes we really have to bring ourselves back to reality and realize that these are luxury products and we don't actually need them. There's no need for fragrances. It's not a life or death thing. We have these, incredible compulsive impulses to buy them. Sure, definitely. Sometimes it feels like we need it. But honestly, it's all just compulsive and borderline addictive behavior sometimes that compel us to buy these fragrances, especially when you have a full collection already that could last you years and years and years, but you still want to add more. You know what I mean? But I say that to say it is a hobby, and you should collect and engage in hobbies and things that you're enthusiastic about. Absolutely. If this is your thing, if you love fragrances, you should buy fragrances. I have way more fragrances than I need personally, so there's some hypocrisy, but I get it. But I say all that to say, if you are patient, you can usually find really good deals on your fragrances, whether it is through a discounter. Sometimes discounters offer sales. Fragrances will go on sale. Brands will go on sale. Sometimes you'll be able to scoop something for an additional 20% off that original discounted price, which is honestly unbelievable. I mean, I've seen, for example, Sospiro Vibrato. Normally, I see that fragrance in the 170 to 180 range, and then sometimes it'll pop up. You'll see it for like 150, and then they'll run like a Sospiro sale where you can get an additional 15 or 20% off. So I've seen that fragrance, which I want to say in store is like over $400. Normally discounted to about 170, 180. I mean, I've seen it drop all the way down to 130. So, the deals are out there. But if you're just impulsively buying something, right in that moment, whenever you first realize that you want something or decide that you want to buy something, if you just buy it for like whatever the cheapest price is available right then and there every single time, in my opinion, you're still leaving bread on the table. That's just how I feel about it. So the point is, if you're patient and you wait and you do your due diligence and you keep an eye out, you can normally find that fragrance that you want to buy for that can't say no price. It comes around eventually every single time. All right, I think that was good. I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I think I'll leave you with some final disclaimers, and then we'll wrap this up completely. Number one thing I want to say is, when you're buying things for cheap, you're getting things for discounted. I kind of said this at the beginning. You can still end up spending more in the long run because things are discounted. And this applies to full-size bottles, to decants, to samples, to everything, okay? Sometimes you feel like, oh, well, because I'm getting a good price, I need to buy it. I need to pull the trigger on it. And honestly, that is just not the truth. Just because something's a good price does not mean that you need it. And to be completely fair, I fall victim to this all the time. And also with certain fragrances, I do think that paying retail and paying full price is the right decision, especially when it comes to some of those brands that don't have their fragrances end up in discounters. To me, it just makes more sense to just go and get it full price retail, get the full experience of shopping from that brand rather than trusting someone on a Facebook group to send you a bottle where they didn't yank all the juice out and replace it with cleaning product. So anyways, I think that's about it. Hopefully this gave you some good tips and tricks to save you some money in your fragrance collecting journey. I know these are the tips and tricks that I use, and I can't even imagine how much I would have had to spend to have the collection that I do now if I didn't do some of the things that I talked about in this video. So that's all I've got for you today. If you like this video, I encourage you to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. It really helps the channel out so I can make more videos like this, providing you some hopefully good value. Again, check out Luxe Gentleman Society and use code FRAGYAP10 for 10% off all of your decants and sample sizes. All right, guys, until next time, have a good one. Stay smelly, and I'll see you later.